On this day, Jacob, in 1958, the NCAA adds the 2-point conversion to the football scoring. How has that changed? How has that affected the league since then?
That they added that there wasn't 2 point conversions before that, huh?
Nope, the 1958 they added it according from what I'm seeing here.
I mean, it's clearly changed the game. I mean, a 2 point conversion off is how they handle overtime after two overtimes in college now. So I mean, it's made its way into it's basically a format at this point. So I mean, it's a good addition. It adds a little bit of entertainment at the end of games. You see those games that you get down to 20-21 and someone goes for two. Makes the game more exciting. I think it was a good addition.
Yeah, a lot of games, a lot of 2-point conversions. I mean, we've talked about NFL games this year of the old Ravens going for it to two, just try to end it a couple times this season. But well, hello all to the Lowing Brothers Sports Podcast here, where today we'll be talking about the national championship game, our reaction to that, NFL preview / our kind of predictions, MVP pick for the NFL season, and also Klay Thompson finally returns to the NBA back on the floor. But to start today, we're going to start off with our reactions and just from this national championship game between Alabama and Georgia, where first half it was more of a defensive game. It seemed like a game of field goals to start the game, and then Georgia kind of just took off the second half more or less to the fourth quarter, scoring 20 points in the fourth quarter to finally take the lead. So to Jacob, I just ask you, what's your reaction to that game? Was that what you expected? And does this define Alabama, Georgia, the SEC? Like, is this just kind of just the way that this game went? You take it however you want.
It was pretty much in line with what I think I thought it was going to be. I said last week that Vegas having Georgia as a 3 point favorite was about right. It seemed that way. 15 points makes the game seem like it was a 2 touchdown game, which it really wasn't. That pick six with a minute left, can change things, down the stretch there. So I mean, it was basically a touchdown game, which is about what I expected to see. I said I expected it to be, a very good defensive game because both those defenses are great. Georgia's defense is so fast. It is, just amazing at how talented that Georgia defense is. I don't know a ton about Georgia. I mean, I know that they are stacked with talent. They have more 5-star players on their team than the whole Pac-12, so they'll be okay. And they're probably bringing in 4 or 5 more. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were. So they're talented. They'll be fine, and they won't be playing a walk-on quarterback. I mean, playing a quarterback who is a walk-on next year either. So, with Alabama, I mean, Alabama's bringing their 2 best players back. I just think they'll be back. They always are. They're favored to win next year right now. They're the top. I don't think they're like the odds-on favorite. I think they're still a plus, but I'm not 100% sure when I looked at that this morning. But so they'll be competitive. I would probably say those two are probably 1-2 going into next year. Except Georgia will reload. They'll probably have someone. Listen, Stetson Bennett's a good quarterback, but whoever they replace him with will probably be better. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If that Georgia team had one of the Heisman, quarterbacks, I mean, they probably could have been one of the better teams ever, in line with, Vince Young's Texas and, Joe Burrow's LSU a couple years ago. So that's kind of my take. What do you think about it?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, like I said, I predicted Alabama to win. I wasn't surprised. I mean, I think it could have went either way. I was more leaning towards Alabama to start, but it was just what the game was, as I think, is what you typically think of an SEC game. It was a defense-dominant game, and it was just a couple big plays that changed the game. I think it definitely could have went Alabama's way. I just think the couple big plays that happened for Georgia's side, and that's what decided. That's all the game was, in my opinion, was just 2 big plays, a big long throw by Bennett and a nice touchdown pass, and then the pick six at the end, clearly with a minute left. And who knows what happens? That pick six doesn't happen. I mean, Alabama drives; they have to get the 2-point conversion. But I think it was a defensive game. Georgia came up with the big plays that needed to happen, and that just decided the game. Um, like you said, Alabama next year, they bring back the Heisman Trophy winner. They're going to reload. Georgia's going to reload. I did look while you said that Georgia has five-star recruits that committed to them next year. It's the second most behind Texas A&M, who has 6. Alabama has 3, and Ohio State has 2. Then the rest of them have 1. Michigan has 1, just so you know. But yeah, like I said, they're both going to reload. It was just defensive game, and like I said, at the end of the day, it just came down to who made the big plays, and Georgia made the couple big plays that really changed the game, in my opinion.
I really thought the game was over when Stetson Bennett had that fumble. I thought Alabama was going to put it away there, and they didn't. So, I mean, Georgia's defense just came up big every time they needed to.
Yeah, and to go with your point here, where you just said whoever Georgia's quarterback is next year. I can't. You just said his name. Georgia's quarterback. Stetson Bennett. He wasn't their starting quarterback the year. It was JT Daniels, who was supposed to be better. A dude, but he got injured and was injured most of the season. But then, at that point, Daniels was there to play. He could have played in the championship game, but clearly you're going to roll with the hot hand, the guy who's been leading you all season. And JT Daniels is only a junior, so he'll be back next year. So I mean, he'll be right there to take the reins back. And I'm sure Georgia will be just fine with him back there. And like I said, it'll just be interesting how like I said, I guarantee next year it'll be Alabama, Georgia, 1-2 probably, depending on the order of where they're ranked. And then I don't know. I was glad to see, like I said, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I hate Bama. They always win. Like, hate them so much. Kind of like those people who hate the Patriots and NFLers. Like, they always want to hate them. Like, I don't hate Bama. I actually like Bama. And if they would have won, I wouldn't have cared. But I like Bama better, but I was happy to see that a different team win it. Not Bama, or even Grant Clemson was bad, but it just seemed like the past however many years just been Clemson or Bama. Granted, LSU won the one year, but I mean, when you think back to college football, I know LSU won it the one year, but in my head, I always just think Alabama, Clemson, because that's all you've seen in the past however many years. Like, they've always been the number 1 and 2 teams, it seemed like, every single year besides this year. So
yeah,
it's just nice to see a different team
more than one since the playoffs have started.
Yeah, it would be those would be the only ones. And
Alabama's probably won. This was the 8th year of the playoffs. 7th or 8th.
Yeah.
Bama's probably won. I think Bama's won 3. Clemson has won 2. Ohio State, LSU, and Georgia have one apiece, I think.
Yep, that'd be right. Because Ohio State won the first one. It had been in 2014 after the new year, clearly. But yeah, I don't know. It was a good game to watch. I really enjoyed watching. Like I said, I wasn't too intrigued with it. Just kind of like you said, like, I don't know. This happened the SEC champ. This was the SEC championship game. We got this game, 2-3 years ago, and I think people are sick and tired of seeing the SEC dominate. And it feels like Alabama versus Michigan, or Alabama or Georgia versus Cincinnati. I think I would have been a lot more interested in the game because it's not 2 SEC teams playing.
If Cincinnati would have beaten Alabama, that game would have been watched by everyone.
Yes, it would have. That would have been a interesting game to watch. Like I said, that's why I kind of wish, and the thing is, if say the playoff was expanded to 8 or 12, I feel like we still got the same results. I feel like we still would have had a Georgia-Alabama matchup in there. Those just 2 teams, like we talked about last week, are just way more dominant than any other team that was out there this year.
They are clearly above and beyond the rest. Like I said, like the gap between 2 and 3 is, I mean, obviously huge. Because Georgia beat Michigan by 20 points. Alabama beat Cincinnati by 20 points, and I legitimately think that Michigan and Cincinnati are the 2 next best teams in the country. They're just like Alabama and Georgia are just that much better than them, that's so crazy that there can be that big of a gap at the top. Yeah, no, that's the thing. I feel like there hasn't been, but I feel like that's almost, maybe not every single year, but this year especially. But like, we talked about this before we started the show even. Like, I kind of told you, I feel like
because I was looking to pardon the interruption. Like Mike Wilbon was talking and stuff, and he talks about how he thinks it should stay at 4 because every single year it seems like there's such a big gap in the semifinal games. Like, I don't feel like there hasn't been very many semifinal games where it's come down to the last possession. I mean, there's been a couple ones went into overtime, but like, it just feels like every single year they always have the top 2 teams playing each other in the national championship game, even though there's 4 teams. I still want to see 8 and stuff like that, but like, we don't have to dive too far into that. But like,
I understand the argument, but you don't see anyone asking for the FCS's playoffs to be reduced from 24 to 4 just because NDSU makes it every year. What's the point of playing more games? People like more games. People want to see number 6 versus number 11. It's just fun. It's fun. No one complains that that Duke and Kentucky and the same 3 teams are in the Elite 8 and the Final 4 every single year. It's fun to watch those games, like, even if they don't matter.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I mean, hate to say it, I don't know why it hasn't happened. Because NCAA is all about money. I feel like they'd make a lot more money if they made a move to that, because that'd be right away. If you had 8 teams, that's 4 games and the top 10 matchups right there, and then another one. NCAA would be racking in money. I can't believe they haven't thought. Surprised NCAA hasn't been like, let's do 16 teams. Like, think of all the money we could make with all these matchups that we could get in there.
Yeah, I mean, and like their biggest argument, like, leading up to when the playoff was instituted in 2014 was, but the bowl games, like, you can still play all the other bowl games. No, like, nothing's stopping you from like I want you to play the other bowl games. So many people complain. They're like, oh, no one wants to watch these 6-6 teams play on a Tuesday. I mean, fine. I mean, that's your opinion, but I mean, like, I think it's great. Give those kids. I mean, you make them earn it. You don't just let everyone play one more game. But I mean, like, I think you've had a successful season. This is still college. Like, this is the pros. I mean, I say give the kids one more game, and if no one goes, and like I said, those kids want to play. They don't care if no one watches it or shows up.
Yeah, like you said, that the kids definitely do want to play. And you're thinking about the whole, like, the NCAA to talk about the bowl games. I mean, I understand those kids, but in my opinion, I don't care if I saw the pepperoni freaking bowl game featuring a 6-6 versus another 6-6 team, or the freaking mini fridge, whatever, just the random made up names I swear they come up with every single year to throw in there. It is special to those kids that have those 6-6 games. I saw a video this year in the bowl game where it was a 6-6 team versus like a 7-5 team, and 6-6 team won. This kid was bawling on the sidelines because they won this bowl game, and it means a lot to them to play in these bowl games and win. But it's still just like, in my head, it's like, maybe there's really diehard fans that want to watch those games and maybe bet on them, but like, to me, it's just like, I could care less about them.
Those games aren't at all about viewership and entertainment. It's about making money off the corporate partnerships and just getting the kids another game. That's really all that it's about. Like I said, I mean, as someone who doesn't watch those games, like, I think it's a good thing that they happen.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with you. Like I said, I'm not going to watch them, so I mean, if they're making money and all that partnerships, yeah, props to them. They can play them and watch them. But anyways, kind of got off topic there. But in general, SEC rules. Georgia wins. End of the season.
And as always, we can count on the NCAA to not get it done, and they failed to give us that expanded playoff that we've been talking about. I think the news broke yesterday that they weren't able to come up for something for the 23 season, I believe, but I think there's still hope that they might get it in by the 24-25 seasons in 2 or 3 years. Yeah, they talked about it today or yesterday, whenever it came out, that there was a disagreement between all the committee members of if it should be some, and I don't know the percentage, but let's just throw it out there. A third of the committee thought it should stick to 4 teams, a third thought it should go to 8, and a third should go to 12. So there was no discussion even between 6. Which there shouldn't be. That's honestly, I'd rather see it stay at 4. That's such a pointless thing to do.
Well, I know that, but you had those people. I was probably one of them at the beginning of it too. That before it went to 8, to go to 6. Before it went to 12, it'd go to 8, and the committee couldn't agree to it, and it was one of the SEC coaches or whoever's in the committee for the SEC, apparently was pissed that the committee couldn't think of something because the SEC, whoever was in it, wanted to go to 12 teams.
Well, I mean, the SEC would get 4 teams in every year. That's why.
Well, I know exactly. That's what I was going to say. Is that
that's in the mid majors
because the SEC would get however many teams every single year in there. That's the SEC wants to expand, and then they can put more teams in there. And honestly, if you ask me, I hate seeing the SEC dominate, but I think if we went to 12 and you had 4 teams SEC, I think it'd show every single year. I think it'd show how still dominant the SEC is. I think most years you'd have more SEC teams up towards the front of the pack than making it further than. Well, clearly, even with 8 or 12, I feel like you're still going to have the Georgias and Alabamas grinding through it all. But whatever, it doesn't matter. I just hope the committee can come up with something and agree on something, because I think it needs a change from 4. I understand the top 4 teams are probably more often than not going to be the teams that win the national championship, but for viewership and for me as a person to see one more game of that, I think it'd be awesome.
I have to agree with that. I mean, we've talked about this actually quite extensively, in past episodes, but I mean, it's just better. Everyone's for it. Said just they can't agree because I mean, here's the thing. Like I said, Alabama and Clemson, they don't want more teams in the playoffs. They want to keep it at 4 so they don't have to play as many games.
Yeah, well, and like I said too about the whole expanding, like I'm not getting into it. That's the point where you take conference championships away, or you take one less game away in the regular season, which would make that up for them.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, and as of right now, the teams still get like 3 weeks off before they have to play in the semifinals.
Yeah,
like they have plenty of, like if you wanted to throw 2 more games in there, and like I said, which is why it's important to have 12, is because if those top 4 teams get a bye, it makes it important for you to win those conference title games, so you actually get a week off.
Yep. No, I agree with you. And I don't think they're going to add any more games because, the coaches and people argue that one more game is another game for injury for some of these kids. I think if anything happens, they'll take away some game or conference championship or something like that. But
yeah, I'd rather see them take away a regular season game and keep the conference title games. But if they go away with that, that's fine. It works in FCS. In FCS, they don't play title games. They do 11-game regular seasons, but they also have a 24-team playoff. So in order to win the FCS, you have to win 4 games, which when you have to have that many playoff games, you have to cut a couple games out, which it works. But speaking of FCS, we're talking about this expanded playoff thing. We got to touch on this controversy that's going on Twitter the last couple of days that stemmed from probably the most ridiculous, heinous, unbelievably terrible take I think I maybe have ever seen that Dom Izzo tweeted yesterday. But I'm going to start with, so the original tweet that started this whole thing, some guy named Mike McFeely, who writes for Inforum, posts, NDSU finished number 38 in the final Sagarin computer rankings of all 258 Division I football teams. Only 4 Group of 5 teams were ranked ahead of the Bison, which were Cincinnati, Boise State, Houston, and Louisiana. And, this is kind of used as a thing to say, see, NDSU is better than all these teams because, and for those that don't know, the Sagarin computer rankings is basically a really fancy computer formula that they use to rank all these teams between FCS and FBS using a really fancy formula, which actually works really well. Vegas uses Sagarin rankings all the time to create spreads and stuff. So these rankings are good. So I'm not trashing these rankings, but so this guy starts with saying, so NDSU finished 38th in this really fancy computer poll, right? Dom Izzo follows this up with this. This is an exact quote. I'm not paraphrasing here. Dom Izzo quote tweets that tweet and says, and again, if the playoff would expand to 12 teams, this would have been a year when NDSU would have been in the mix for a playoff spot to play Georgia or Alabama or Michigan or keep playing Western Illinois, whatever. End tweet. He legitimately thinks that NDSU would have been, quote, in the mix for a playoff spot. And he defends himself later on in other threads, and he released some clips from his podcast this morning defending this take. He says, I didn't say they make it, I'd say they'd be in the mix. in the mix. How? They lost to an FCS team.
Yeah, Jacob, I am absolutely flabbergasted about this tweet that Dom Izzo put. Flabbergasted, Jacob. I don't throw that word around lightly. Honestly, I don't use it very often, but when I saw that, I am flabbergasted. What in the hell is he thinking? We argue of these top teams, even the 12, if we moved it up. We talk about these teams with one loss, like in the top four, so like they had one loss, like, oh, was it a bad loss, good loss? They lost to an FCS team, and he thinks that puts them in the top 12. They wouldn't even be in the conversation. Like in this ranking, he responds in this ranking. What you said, they're 38.
Yeah.
How does 38 put him in the conversation for 12?
And here's his argument. And I listened to his 2-minute clip he posted from his podcast, and he goes, if you go 12-1 and win your conference in FBS, even if you're a mid-major in the new playoff, and they guarantee a selection to a group of 5 teams, they'd be in consideration with the other group of 5 teams. And then it's like, so you're automatically assuming that NDSU would win 12 games and only lose 1 and win the Mountain West if they win FBS. They'd win 8 games. They'd be a great team. This isn't an NDSU hate episode, guys. I want to be clear here. NDSU would probably win 7 or 8 games in FBS. They're really good. Like I said, like these rankings are normally pretty spot on. I wouldn't doubt they could win 7 or 8 games, maybe even 9. But NDSU's not going 12-1 in the Mountain West. And then winning the conference title. That is insane.
Yeah, no, I would honestly agree this exact same thing. The issue, if they play Mountain West, like clearly, yeah, I agree they would win some games. They'd probably win most of them. But even that, they go 12-1, and even if they went to 12 teams, I feel like a lot of those non-Power 5 teams that win their conference with one loss would still barely be in the conversation to make the top 12.
Yeah, like I said,
like undefeated, yes, of course, they'd be in the top 12 because they're an undefeated FBS team and this and that. But like one loss as an FBS team in a conference that's not Power 5, you're barely going to be considered in the top 12. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, that is just ludicrous. I mean, UCF went undefeated back to back, and I think the best ranking they gave them was like 9.
Yeah, no, that's my point exactly, and I don't. And like I said, we talked about no. I think the only reason why Cincinnati got in this year is because everything fell in their lap. Like I said, after the top 4, there was no conversation. If Oregon was, I honestly believe if Oregon, like say they won the Pac-12 and they were undefeated, or say they had like one loss, I feel like there would have been a conversation. Or I feel like Oregon would have got in over Cincinnati. The only reason why they're undefeated and Pac-12 had 2 losses, ACC, there was no team there that could have went in there. The Big 12, there was no team either. So like it just kind of fell in their lap that they had that opportunity to be in there. Any other year when clearly Michigan got in there, but you have an ACC team like if you had Clemson this year, there's no way Cincinnati's getting in. So, but like that's 4 teams clearly. But I'm just can't believe it. That's just one of the most idiotic things I think I've ever heard. Especially you sent me that tweet to me and Alex today, and I'm just like, what in the hell is this guy thinking? Not the conversation. Yeah, they might have been in conversation. Say they went 12. They might have been in conversation for a good bowl game, but to be in the top 12, forget about it. And I'm not trying to, like I said, this is not an NDSU hate episode. Like, they would be good, like you just said. Like, and clearly me and you're biased, but, like, I respect NDSU for what they've done, clearly, but, like, just can't believe that he said that. And
yeah, I mean,
that's part of our thing, Jacob. Many episodes ago when we talked, and I don't know if we talked with Carson or maybe it was before that, but when we talked about, that's what I just... not saying everybody. I think it's very few that get pointed out about NDSU fans. That some people come out and say something like that, say that they would have been in the conversation for the top 12. Like they won the FCS championship game and they're 38.
Yeah,
according to
38.
this.
And I mean, and you can. I looked at. I'm scrolling. I mean, this page that has the rankings is kind of wonky to read, but if you read it, the best team in those Sagarin rankings that they played, that NDSU played this year was Montana State, who is like. Oh, nope, no, never mind. It would be South Dakota State, who's number 71, and they lost to them. They lost.
Yeah.
In terms of those Sagarin rankings, the best team that they've played all year, they lost to them, and they're ranked number 71. And they're like, well, that was on the road. You play, you're going to play 4 teams a year who are better than South Dakota State on the road when you go up. You can't just rely on the Fargo Dome anymore. And frankly, the Fargo Dome is not going to be as big of a thing anymore because Boise State plays in places where there's more than 20,000 people there all the time.
Yeah.
And the Fargo Dome's not special. They think it is because they go to the Lair Center and they see there's 10,000 people there and it's quiet.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I don't know. It's just, and that's the thing though. Like I said, they won the FCS, and this thing, and like I said, it might not be the most. I didn't know about this. I mean, you have out there like this pretty reliable thing, but this thing has them at 38. Like you can't tell me, and not like I said, I'm not saying any once every 5-10 years, whatnot. If NDSU was in the FBS, they'd be ranked in the high 20s or something like that. But they're not going to. I
mean, like listen to some of the teams that are ranked above, that are ranked, right around the area that NDSU is ranked in this thing. Like Florida, who went 6-7, is 43, and they almost beat Alabama. And they'd play a team like Florida 7 times a year. NDSU's not going 12-1, which I mean, here's the deal. The main crux of his argument is correct. Like a 12-1 conference championship from a G5 team would be in the mix because that's only if you guarantee a G5 team school an automatic bid. If there's no automatic bid, a G5 team school needs to go undefeated to get into the top 12. You're not going to go 12-1 and make it in the top 12. But like he's right about that. But like saying that this would have been year NDSU would have been in the mix for a playoff spot is crazy because they wouldn't go 12-1.
Yeah, no,
That's insane.
Well, and he says this. Okay, and I say that, and say you put NDSU in the Big Ten or the SEC or even the Big 12 or any of those Power 5 conferences, they're going 500. I wouldn't even know if they went 500 in those really good conferences.
I mean, imagine if they had to play Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Florida, LSU. And granted, these are down just for LSU and Florida, and they both went 6-7, and they're still pretty good. You just go like I mean, like you throw that 6-7 team. 6-7 LSU team into the Sun Belt, and they probably win 10 games.
Yeah, I would agree with you too, but it's just crazy. Once you sent that to me, I couldn't believe it, like absolutely couldn't believe it. And I'm looking up a couple years here, and like of the Sagarin things, especially in the dominant times that NDSU has been good, like. The highest like I've seen them ranked is in those really good years. I think they've been better in past years. Has been like in like the low 30s. Like I think I've saw one high 20s.
I think that year they beat Iowa. I think they cracked top 25, but like it wasn't like they were like ranked number 15.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. Well, actually, this one in 2018, I guess they had them at 19. But still, that's when they won 15-0. That was 2018. I don't know who would have been when at that time, but still, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't believe it. But we better move on, or else I know me and you could talk about that for a very long time. Unless you have another last comment.
No, I just want to say that is one of the most ridiculous things that I've probably ever seen in my life. And he was making it out to be that it was just the UND crazies who are mad that NDSU is good. We're complaining about his take. It's like, no, we're complaining about your take because your take is bad, not because I'm a UND fan.
Yeah, like I said, I'm absolutely flabbergasted. If you're that confident,
so bad.
I want to call Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, all these teams, be like, hey, pay NDSU to come play you guys one of these years and just humble them, please. Please just go humble
This
them.
year's Michigan team, who we saw wasn't in the league of Alabama and Georgia, would beat NDSU this year by 40. I firmly believe that.
No, like I said, I think they'd be humbled a lot if not even those teams, if you had a Michigan State or whatever. But anyways, moving on. We're going to move on to the NBA, which finally, after how many days have gone by, that Klay Thompson finally returns to the court. As of today, he has played 2 games, once against the Cavaliers and once against the Grizzlies. He's played minimal minutes, 20 minutes about each game, and he's came back to the court, and it's great to see him back on the court, and I hope he stays healthy. Jay, what's your response to Klay Thompson, and what do you think impact do you think he gives to the Warriors moving forward?
I mean, honestly, right now, I think it's more morale than anything. I mean, he was their second leading scorer on Sunday. But he got 19 minutes both games. I mean, he's not out there a ton, but I think it's just a big morale thing to get the other Splash brother back. I think it's been coming back at a good time. I just saw before the episode started that Golden State's 6-4 in the last 10 games, so they're struggling a little bit right now. So, maybe they need a little bit of a spark plug here. So I think it's great. I mean, it's great to see him back. I mean, the Warriors clearly have not been the same without him. They played 2 full seasons without Klay. It's been well over 2 years since he's been on the floor. So it's great to see him back. By playoffs, I'm sure he'll be 100% back to his old self. And I mean, I think the Warriors can make a run at it this year with Klay. I think they could have without Klay. With Klay, I think they could definitely make a run.
Yeah, no, not going to really add much onto that. I just love to see Klay Thompson back. Looking forward to hopefully some more games where he only dribbles 4 times and drops 50 points down. He's such a good spot-up shooter and all. I love
That's
to
a
see
message
him
to
back.
you kids out there. Don't mess around dribbling the basketball like I did back in the day. Just learn how to shoot it. Just learn how to shoot it off a catch, and you can score.
Oh, Jacob, you talk about that. I swear you talk about you play around dribbling. There's kids these days that, even in my school right now that I'm teaching Drayton, there's some kids that they just dribble around. Like I played one-on-one with my freshman class one day, and like half of them would just sit there and just dribble and just do between the legs behind their back. And I literally just sit there. I'm just like, what are you doing? It's just like, I'm not going to guard this. You're not doing anything. You're just standing there dribbling around. It makes no sense. I'm not going to get into it because that drives me nuts about how some of these kids, they just dribble way too much. But love that Klay Thompson's back. I think he'll impact this team in a very positive way. They've already one of the best teams in the NBA right before he came, and I think he'll give him a spark, and clearly throughout the time the season progresses, he'll play more minutes. But love to see him back. Think they're easily still probably the favorite to win the NBA, and excited. Hopefully he stays healthy. I pray to God Klay Thompson stays healthy. NBA is so much better when he's in it.
I gotta agree, but while we're talking about the Warriors right now, and Klay's return on Sunday, something happened on Sunday, Jared. So we're talking about this before the episode. So what happened on Sunday was Draymond Green started the game, and after the tip, he immediately walked up to the guy from the Cavs who was handling the ball and just intentionally fouled him 3 seconds into the game and sat the rest of the game. So what happened was Draymond, I don't remember what the exact deal was, but Draymond was having some sort of like knee soreness or tightness, during warm-up, so they were going to scratch him from the lineup. But they wanted him to be a part of Klay's return, so they started him. No one knew until about 5 minutes before the game was started when some random dude tweeted that they were going to do that. So what happened was all these sports books didn't have time to adjust Draymond Green's over-unders. So before the game started and before Draymond did that, a bunch of guys were putting $4,000 on, on Draymond under rebounds, under assists, under points. And all these sports books, I don't know if it's been resolved yet, are deciding if they're going to pay those out or not. What do you think of that?
I don't know how to respond to that. And it's sports. The Warriors didn't have to disclose that for the sports books. God forbid that the sports books get screwed over one time about something like that.
And it wasn't
And
that many people because, like I said, like it was some dude with like 500 followers who tweeted like 3 minutes before the game started that Draymond was going to start and foul and then leave the game immediately.
like, and if I bet on Draymond of some player thing, I've been this too. But the thing is, like, it's not the Warriors' responsibility to keep up with the sports books and put that stuff out there. So I'm completely fine with that. I saw Bleacher Report betting because I follow that. Some dude put like a grand on Draymond Green scoring the first basket of the game, and he would have won like, I don't know, he would have won like 10 grand off of Draymond scoring the first basket by putting $1,000 on. And the first play, there's a video on it. You should look it up. And if anyone's listening, you gotta look it up. This, like, he literally fouls. Draymond fouls and walks off the court, and this guy starts freaking out. It's the most hilarious thing ever. I didn't know what was even happening at the time. I didn't realize that's the reason why he was in the game and then fouled, but like because they want to be part of the whatever. But besides that, I have no problem with that. It's the Warriors. It's to their discretion. I know the sports betting world is taking a full turn in the United States, especially of a lot of states. New York opened it up for online sports betting last week, I believe, maybe a week and a half ago. But to that discretion, I have no problem with that. I mean, it's not their responsibility for the bettors. That's my opinion on it. And yeah, it sucks for the people that might have bet and put some money down on it, but it's at their discretion. It's at the discretion. I feel like that's just part of sports betting. You know, it's just like we talk about injuries, part of the game, part of sports betting. You know, it's not the team's responsibility to report that stuff. And you know, if you're gonna bet, and I'm one to do that, you know, a lot of people bet on games where Lamar Jackson's probable or it's a game time decision. Do you want to bet on that game? Because if Lamar plays, you're like, wow, I feel confident in this bet, but if he doesn't, you'd be like, wow, you know, whatever. I think that's just part of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the big controversy here is like if Draymond didn't play at all, like the bets would have just been void. But since he started and played a minute and recorded a stat, which was the foul, it's an official start. So they kind of have to pay it out because he participated in the game and all of his unders hit.
Yeah. Well, I don't care how many people bet the over and didn't know about it. I
think they should pay it out, but I just think that is so hilarious. I mean, like think of scrolling through Twitter and you see this random dude that's like, yep, Draymond's not gonna play. He's gonna start and go out, and then you immediately deposit 10 grand into your DraftKings account and go, all right, we're hitting the unders.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there was a lot of people out there who were just bumfuzzled about everything out there of whatever just happened that people didn't know. Like I said, people didn't know until maybe that tweet, but people, you know, clearly don't see that. And I'm sure whatever WOJ or Woj, whatever, tweeted it about 2 minutes before the game started. And at that point, you know, it's hard to you can't take a bet like that. No, they got to pay him out, in my opinion.
I love it. All right. Well, I think we can quit talking about that and talk about some a little bit of NFL. We could talk about the playoffs. What's kind of your initial reaction to, you know, how the seeds and stuff have played out here?
I like to say one fact that, man, I wish the freaking Raiders and Chargers would end up in a tie, so we could have had them both in there. Like, it's one of those games they both could have made it. And from what I've seen from videos, that the Raiders were planning on kneeling it out to end the game there, but then the Chargers called a timeout, and I don't know, who knows. I just saw a video of a guy at the end of the game asked him, like, were you guys going to kneel it out? And the one guy's like, yeah, we were going to. And he's like, kind of whatever, roll his eyes. But would have loved to see that. But to be honest, I'm looking forward to the NFC side. I'm not really looking forward much to the AFC side. Not going to lie. I feel like it's been NFC dominant. I feel like most of the teams you've been talking about this year has been from the NFC. You have the Packers, the Bucks, the Cowboys have been up there, and then the Rams and Cardinals. Like, I feel like all those teams we talked about, and I feel like up until recently it's been the Chiefs, and you talked about the Bills early in the season, and then when the Patriots on their thing, you're like, oh, the Patriots, but now they kind of, lost a lot of their last games and this and that. I predict them to be the 1 seed, they're the 6, whatever. But I don't know. I'm honestly, looking forward to the NFC side. I'm very curious. The one game I actually want to watch out of all of them is the Rams Cardinals, because those are two teams I believe have a very good chance to make the Super Bowl, and I hate to see that they're playing. I'd rather see the Cowboys versus the Rams and the Niners versus the Cardinals rather than just so it's a later matchup. And I feel like every team in the NFC minus the Niners and I'm maybe not even that. The Niners and the Eagles, I feel like every other team on the NFC side could win the Super Bowl. And I'm not even joking. But we've talked about this later shows. I feel like there's a lot of teams that can win the Super Bowl. There's not one team in the AFC I feel like I'm positive that I could think they could. And I could argue the Chiefs, of course. Titans when they got Derrick Henry, maybe, whatever. But the one team in the AFC I talk about is and we talked about it before the show. When the Bengals are hot, I think they're one of the best teams in the league. Yes, they've gone in streaks of being really good and kind of subpar, but we've seen it before with the Giants winning the Super Bowl. I feel like the 2 Super Bowls they won, they just got on a three-game really hot streak to win the Super Bowl. And I think the Bengals are one of those teams that if they play 3 really good games, I think I could see them compete for it. Do I think they're going to win? No. But in my opinion, I'm more or less watching the NFC side because I think there's so many teams on that side that could win it. And if I was a betting man, I think I'd bet on the NFC side compared to the AFC. I don't know what's your overall opinion. I'm not going to go dive deep into each single game, but my overall opinion, that's what my opinion on the playoffs.
I could be wrong. You talk about the Giants. I'm pretty sure the Giants were wild cards both years they won the Super Bowl. I don't think they won their division either year.
No, then that's what I'm saying.
So like I said, I mean, like,
you just need a team to go hot for 3 games.
Yeah, worse teams for sure than the Bengals have won Super Bowls, and the Bengals are fully capable of getting real hot and playing well. They can. I mean, honestly, at this point, I mean, Burrow can go off for 500 yards anytime, and on record, I was not a fan of them taking Ja'Marr Chase. I thought they needed to pick Penei Sewell and get a guy to protect Burrow. And honestly, I don't think that line is still that good. But they're the complete opposite of of the general thinking that, I mean, their offensive line is bad, but it doesn't matter because they're so good at all their skill positions. They have 3 pretty good wide receivers. I mean, 2. I'm trying to think of the third. I mean, T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase are both real good. Joe Burrow is fantastic. Boyd. Oh, yeah, that's right, Boyd. And Joe Mixon is awesome. I mean, like I said, the line I don't think is awful, but I mean, they're definitely like a top 10 line. But I mean, like, they're so good at skill position that they can beat anyone if they're playing hot. So I mean, I think they're definitely a dark horse. I think the AFC is going to be real interesting. I mean, I think the 3 teams that I think have the best chance of making the Super Bowl out of there are the Titans, the Chiefs, and then probably the Bengals because they can get hot. I really, really like the Titans, especially if they get this week off. They give Derrick Henry another week to, stay healthy and, I mean, to get healthy and, get back to 100%. And they're going to be, I mean, Derrick Henry finished 9th in the league in rushing, and he played less than half the games. He played 8 of 17 games, and he finished 9th in rushing. This dude's a man.
We talk about it every single week. Well, you bring it up about every week. It's like Derrick Henry's still 4, he's still 5, and like it's kind of crazy to think about. And in my opinion, I think the only way the Chiefs don't make this, if the Chiefs are in the AFC Championship, I'd be betting that they're gonna make the Super Bowl. Because that's, in my opinion, that's just been the Chiefs, and I think they might be tested by the Steelers, and their second game, depending who they play, they might be tested. I won't be surprised if any team, honestly, minus the Raiders, if any of the teams in the AFC made it, I won't be surprised. And
I don't see the Steelers doing anything.
Okay, never mind. But, well, I'm just saying, I feel like there's NFC, there's a lot of good teams, so I won't be surprised if any of them make it. But the AFC, then again, I just don't think any of them are to the NFC level that if any of them make it to the Super Bowl either, I would be surprised, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'd have my money on probably a Packers. I'm going to go Titans, either the Titans or the Chiefs. I really do think this is the year the Packers finally get there. They're in Lambeau the whole time. Rodgers is playing well. Defense is good. They've been consistent all year other than that first game. I think it's the year they make it. I don't know if they win. Like I said, I think I have my money's on the Packers and probably the Titans. I'm about 60-40 Titans-Chiefs here, just because the Titans look so good at the beginning of the year with Henry, and they still looked great after.
And in my opinion, I think it's going to be Packers-Chiefs. But I want to throw a random one out there, and this is going to be a long ball. And part of me, I want to say this is what I think it's going to be, because the NFC, I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers lose, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs and the Titans. I'm going to say Bengals versus the Rams in the Super Bowl.
I mean, I think that's not all that big of a hot take here. I mean,
and it's probably
the Rams have shown they can be hot and great too.
And I don't know if it's much hot take, because the thing is, I think the Packers, the Bucks, the Cowboys, the Rams, the Cardinals, all 5 of them on that side could easily go off for 3 games and be hot.
And they're all within a game of each other, mind you. I mean, the Packers are 13-4, and the Bucks are 13-4, and then seeds 3 through 5 are all 12-5.
Well, the Cardinals are 11-6.
That's not a big gap. Oh yeah, my bad. But still, it's not a big gap.
It's not, and like I said, I'm excited. Honestly, it's like the first year I feel like I've actually kind of been invested in the NFL playoffs, and it's not even the AFC side. Like I said, it's just the NFC. I want to see how that plays out, because I think it's going to be the Packers, and I think the Bucks are going to win. I think the Cowboys will be the 49ers, and the Rams, the Cardinals, whoever wins that one. Then after that, it's going to be, clearly said, it's going to be Packers versus the Rams, the Cardinals, and it's going to be the Bucks versus the Cowboys. I'm very interested to see what the NFC Championship game looks like, because I'm not one of those people who be like, there's not going to be an upset, but like I think the Bucks will handle the Eagles, and I think the Cowboys will handle the 49ers, and I'm very excited for that side. Actually, after the first round, I think I'm actually probably going to watch the rest of the playoffs, because I'm not one to actually watch NFL playoffs until like the Super Bowl or even like the championship games, each conference, but very excited on the NFC side. Very excited, because I just think there's so many good teams on that side that could come out winning. And I know I'm not one of the Cowboys haters. I'm actually hoping but minus the Patriots, of course. My next team would be the Packers, but I'm not going to lie. I'm actually kind of hoping for the Cowboys. I want to be the Cowboys year. I want Dak, and I want the Cowboys to win. But then again, if they win, I feel like Cowboys fans would be nuts all over the
I think
the
they're losing to the
U.S.
49ers in the first round. I think the 49ers are better than their record shows.
Well, they're 10-7, which isn't bad. I think the 49ers are good. I think the Cowboys win. I just think their offense, and they got a strong defense this year. I'm not going to lie. I think the Cowboys will be, if I had to bet, I think the Cowboys are going to be in the NFC Championship. I'm not saying they're going to win. I think the Cowboys are going to be there this year. I think they will. But moving forward, talking about the Packers, the Bucks, all these teams, we have one last topic here for our podcast in NFL. MVP picks. Clearly, we have Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and we've talked in past shows of who we think the MVP favorites are. Bruce Arians came out, I think it was today or yesterday, that said that he thinks there's no way Tom Brady can't be considered or should be, because he's broken these records. He's had another great season, that he should be considered the favorites. But as of right now, today, Aaron Rodgers is a favorite at -400, then Tom Brady +400, Cooper Kupp. I'm not going to go into Cooper Kupp, Joe Burrow, Jonathan Taylor. That's about as far as it go. Who do you think should be, or who deserves the MVP?
I said a few weeks ago that Cooper Kupp was my MVP, and I'm going to stick to my guns here, and I'm going to tell you why. I think it comes down to 4 guys. It either has to be Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Jonathan Taylor, or Cooper Kupp. I'm going to roll out Jonathan Taylor first. He's had a great year. I think he has over 1,800 rushing yards, leads the league in rushing touchdowns and such, but I don't think he's had a historically great enough season for a running back to really warrant winning MVP. I mean, we kind of joke that the Super Bowl that the MVP is a quarterback award. I mean, and it kind of should be. I mean, the quarterback is the most important player in the football field, and they typically are considered to be the best player on a team. So in order for you to, I think, to give another position over a quarterback, you have to be historically pretty great. Yeah, like when AP had a 2,000-yard rushing season, he won an MVP. Derrick Henry probably should have last year, in my opinion. Maybe not. Aaron Rodgers had a great year last year, but so I'm gonna roll Jonathan Taylor. Kupp had a historically great year. I get that he had one more game, but I mean, he finished like 15 yards short of breaking Calvin Johnson's receiving record. And he's a 6'1" white guy. He won the receiving triple crown. So he had a historically great year. I think, and I just don't. Aaron Rodgers. I think has probably played the best, but he missed a game. It shouldn't be a statistical award, but I don't think his stats are quite there. He didn't have the volume that you'd expect someone of his caliber to have. And Brady, Brady had these great stats here, but he had a ton of volume. His yards per attempt weren't amazing. He just had a ton of volume this year. So I'm gonna give it. And I think Kupp has the biggest impact on his team out of all these guys. Jonathan Taylor probably more, but like I said, I don't think he had a historically good enough season to warrant an MVP. He should be in the top. I don't think he should get it. So I'm gonna give it to Cooper Kupp this year.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. And there's been discussion that we maybe could have even added to this too, but is that the fact? The part of it is that I don't know who I want to say wins the MVP. I think it could go to anybody. I think it's tough. I think Aaron Rodgers in my head, and there's been discussion prior to that. Does Cooper Kupp deserve, like, if he would have broke those records, would have he deserved it because they played one extra game? Or say he broke the record, should there have been an asterisk mark saying, like, he played one more game than all these rest of these people? Because that one more game does make a big deal out of all these stats that are being put out there.
It does.
And I don't know, in the past, it is a quarterback's game. Out of the out of the 65 MVP winners, 44 have been quarterbacks and 18 have been running backs. Only 3 other people have won MVP, which has been a kicker.
I was going to say, did you know one of them was a kicker?
Well,
for the Redskins, I think.
Yeah, it's been a kicker, and I'm not even sure who the rest have been.
Probably
to be
a
honest.
Linebacker and an edge rusher or something back in the day.
No, actually, one of them
was a kick returner, maybe. I think he was a return guy.
Well, in 1962, a fullback, Jim Taylor, won it, and Jim Brown, it says listed as a fullback here too. But there's been 3 people or whatnot that have apparently haven't been a running back or a quarterback, and I'd want to say Jonathan Taylor, and he hasn't had the historic season that like AP had when he won it the one year, but like, I don't know. It's a tough. You can argue Tom Brady. You can argue all of them. Clearly, I think the favorite is -400 Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to win it. And what a season! We talked about him retiring last episode or a couple episodes ago. What a season for him to end if he wins MVP in the Super Bowl. Be one hell of a way to go out.
I quit.
And like I would argue that LeBron James deserves a lot more MVPs than he does. And if you ask me, like we're talking about, and you talk about the stats thing, if we're talking about who's the most valuable player, who's the best player, who's the one player I want in the NFL, who's the most valuable, I would say Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't say Jonathan Taylor. I wouldn't say Cooper Kupp. And that's the thing. That's the thought of it being a quarterback league. Like, if you have a great quarterback, you're going to be a better team. That's just how it is. And this award is more quarterback written too. But like, if you ask me who I want, who's the most valuable player that I'd want on my team, if you completely drafted everybody that's NFL over again, who's the number 1 pick, I would say Aaron Rodgers. And for that reason, I pick him. And for all those years that LeBron didn't win it to it, and Russell Westbrook has triple-double, James Harden here and that. If you would have asked me who's the most valuable player in the NBA, LeBron James. We don't have to get into that more, but in my opinion, I feel like that's how the the award should be. And Michael Jordan won all of those ones. I feel like back in the day, that's what they thought about. They didn't think about, oh, this guy had a great statistical season. I think they just think, who's the best player and who do I want on my team this year? I think that's how the rule worked. They just said, I want Michael Jordan. And I feel like if the NBA was different like that too, I feel like all these reports, if they'd say something about LeBron James, LeBron James would have won, maybe not this year, maybe not last year too, but he would have won 10 straight MVP awards. But that's why I think, in my opinion, if I'm picking one guy who I think is the most valuable player, Aaron Rodgers, and that's how I want to look at this award. But I don't think that's how people do it. It's a statistical award, but also depending how good you are and how good your team is.
Yeah, and I think when I was looking earlier, I think the only player to ever win an MVP when their team won like less than like 10 games, or it was 11 or less games, was I think like Matt Ryan and someone else. So I mean, your team being good, matters. And if Aaron Rodgers if Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady win the MVP this year, which let's be honest, one of those two will, they're not going to give it to Cup or Taylor. They'll be in sole possession of second place in MVPs all time, behind only Peyton Manning, who won 5, and both Rodgers and Brady have won 3. Which is crazy to think that Rodgers and Brady have only won 3 apiece.
Well, it's crazy to think that if Rodgers wins it, that's one of those arguments that you can throw out there too, is that like people with LeBron and MJ and all that, they'll talk about MVP awards and stuff like that, but like Aaron Rodgers, if he wins this one, he'll be the first player since Peyton Manning to win back-to-back MVP awards. Peyton Manning back in 2008, 2009.
That's tough to do.
Yeah, it is tough to do. And the thing is, though, too, is I feel like the past 4 years I would have said Aaron Rodgers. Then prior to that, I probably would have said Tom Brady all those years too. But Tom Brady won in 2010, and then in between that, he won in 2017. And I feel like between 2010 and 2017, you could have said Tom Brady about at least three times in between that. But like I said, it's not.
We also got to keep in mind that the MVP is a regular season award, and Tom Brady is the best ever because of his postseason greatness, right?
Yeah.
And he has and he has the Super Bowl MVPs to prove it, right?
Well,
Peyton has won.
Nah, that's the thing about it, and Aaron Rodgers, I believe, has one as well. I'm pretty sure the one Super Bowl he won the MVP award there too. But that's the thing. I know it's a statistical thing. I wish it was just like who's the best player. Honestly,
then they name it the best player award, right? I mean, it's a seasonal award for. I kind of think the MVP is a combination of who is the best, most valuable player, and just who had the best season, because it is an award for an individual season. It's not the best player award, because if it was the best player award, the same person would every year. But you have to take into account, maybe someone just played a little bit better in these stretch of games.
Yeah, okay, I understand that, but I feel like if you say in this season, who's the player you want, or who's been the best player all season, I feel like sometimes the answer isn't who's the MVP. I feel like statistically, those years that Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double, are you telling me if you said who's the best player, who had the best season, just because he averaged a triple-double, are you taking Russell Westbrook?
I wouldn't say he even had the best season those years, because like I said, you have to take into account volume. When you think about that, and turnovers. I'm a big turnover guy. Like if you're going to turn it over 5 times a game, you don't get to win the MVP.
Yeah, well, like I said, we discussed that the whole turnover thing last week, but I don't know. In my opinion, like I said, I'm not saying who's the best, like Tom Brady's the best or Aaron Rodgers is the best, but I just feel like if you ask me, like, and even the year Patrick Mahomes, like Lamar Jackson won the years before that, if you said best season, and the way you look at a best season is statistically wise, though. You look to see like. I mean,
not necessarily. I legitimately
not necessarily.
think. I legitimately think that Chris Paul should have been the MVP last year, and his stats weren't amazing.
Well, that's us talking about it, though. But that's what the media, and that's what they look. They see who's throwing the most touchdowns, least interceptions. Who, if it's a running back, did he score a lot of more touchdowns than a lot of other people, and did he rush for a lot of yards? That's what they look at. But in my opinion, I think it should be, like you said, who's the best if I'm going to take someone this season, you have to say their whole career, who's the best this season, who I think's most talented. I think most years, in my opinion, it would have been Aaron Rodgers, and I think it would have been Tom Brady most of his years. Even the year Matt Ryan won it, they end up losing, but like all those years and stuff like that, I just think there's a lot of years that we look at it as just not we as me and you, but as the people who vote on it as a statistical thing, not who's actually the best this season.
It is,
And
but I mean, with Rodgers being the favorite, I mean, Rodgers hasn't had the best statistical season for any quarterback outside of pretty much his QBR. That's the only thing where he's been statistically better than anyone else this year, that and interceptions.
I'm not saying as the people that get voted are the best statistical, but they're up in the top of that season, though. I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers is the top of everything. He's not, but I'm saying he's still up there, and that's my point. I'm saying all those years of LeBron James didn't win, and I feel like if you just say who's the best this season, I feel like almost every single year you could say LeBron James. Maybe those years that Kevin Durant was coming up, you say KD or whatnot, but whatever. I just think if I'm picking one person, I'm saying who's been the best player this season. Aaron Rodgers didn't play one game, too. You got to remember. You know, that probably has an effect on some of his statistical things as well. Because he didn't play against Kansas City, but
yeah, I mean, you know, that can be seen as a positive or negative. I mean, a negative is you missed a game. You don't want guys missing games. I mean,
yeah. Well, like I said, I'm not going to get into that as much. I don't foresee Aaron Rodgers having an absolutely. Again, he had a subpar game his first game of the season, but like I said, everyone is recent, not what happened at the beginning of the season. But, anyways, I think Aaron Rodgers should win it. In my opinion, I know I say Cooper Kupp. Yeah, you can make an argument for him. Maybe he should, but the NFL looks at it as not that award. If you're telling me Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, I'm taking Aaron Rodgers as MVP.
I think Tom Brady's actually going to win it, even though he's not the favorite. I kind of think the media has a problem with Aaron Rodgers right now, and unfortunately for him, the media votes.
Well, Jacob, go put $100 on it, and you'll win $400. So,
not a bad idea.
But, well, thank you guys. I think that's the end of the show. I'll stop us right there before we start rambling and arguing about some other stupid thing. But thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next week. Like I said, I don't think we'll be back this week at all. Be back next week discussing some other things. And like I said, depending on the week, you know, it might be one or two. I especially with me, though I have girls basketball, I feel like it might be hard to do it twice a week. So it might be back again next Wednesday, and that'll probably be the end of it.
I think that sounds like a stellar plan, and I think with less stuff to talk about, I might be able to mix in a little bit of college b-ball because I've been watching a few games lately, and the season's been interesting.
Oh yeah, we can talk about it. The two undefeated teams lost these past couple of days.
Texas Tech playing real well.
So, but I guess we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for the ones that are listening, and yeah, we'll be talking again next week. So, thank you guys.